Hello, I'm Janice Swerzak, the president of the Teal Foundation. The Teal Foundation is a not-for-profit community agency in Lawrenceville, New Jersey that was founded by Jean Shippos in 2006. The mission of the Teal Foundation is to promote awareness of ovarian cancer and a search for the cure, one T at a time.
Hi, my name is George Phillip. I'm an associate member of the Teal Foundation and happy to be here today talking with our special guests who are Kathy Heck and Eric Heck. And thank you so much for being with us this afternoon.
Thank you
for sharing your time. Appreciate that. And what I'd like to ask Kathy in particular to start our discussion is, when were you first diagnosed with ovarian cancer?
Back in December of 2013, I went for my regular GYN annual checkup, and unfortunately 2 weeks later I got that phone call that most women don't want to hear: we need to see you back in the office right away. So on December 20th I went back in, and my regular GYN told me that there were cancer cells present in my pap test and that I would need to see an oncologist. My oncology world actually started in January of 2014.
And what was your reaction when you got that call?
Well, my reaction was thinking, oh, it's the holidays, I'll just wait until after the new year. And they said, oh no, you need to be in within 2 days. And I had Eric come with me thinking, I've never had a problem before, why would I have a problem now? And then when I went into the exam room and he walked in, I thought, how am I supposed to get dressed and go out to the front desk and get a business card of an oncologist? What is going on? How did this happen to me? So it's a state of shock and unknown, because I've never had problems before.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. And in terms of treatment, what was the process like? How did it evolve? How did it move forward?
After the new year, we actually met with our oncologist with the University of Pennsylvania and went down. And the initial reaction, I sat there thinking, what am I doing here? How did I enter this world? And initially, we just started with the preliminary. Let's do a cervical biopsy. Let's do blood work, one step at a time. The cervical biopsy came back negative, so I thought, oh, I guess it was just a mistake. Until my doctor saw the actual pap test slides and said that yes, that truly was cancer cells, and we went ahead with a radical hysterectomy, which ended up being quite a process because I was diagnosed at stage 3C, which means that lymph node involvement. So my 2 to 3 hour surgery became a 5 to 6 hour surgery.
And that period is a bit of a blur, as anybody who would go through could understand. But what was curious was it was picked up in a pap test, which is very unusual for ovarian cancer. So we were not only with the shock of the original diagnosis, as one would have, but we were also working with our medical team trying to figure out which specialization do we go to, because on the pap side, on the cervix side, they quickly started ruling that out. So they wanted to toss us somewhere else. So is it endometrial? Is it some other cancer? But ovarian came up maybe a month and a half into it. They finally were like, well, this might be ovarian cancer. But we don't know how we detected it with the pap test. So there was curiousness there. So then they thought, well, maybe it's an early staging of ovarian. Long story short, as it turned out, that the ovarian cancer was using the endometrial scarring that my wife had from endometriosis to migraine, and as the doctor did his normal thing on a pap test, he happened to nick that, and it came out that way. So on the one hand, it was shocking. On the other hand, it was a blessing that it was found accidental. And we're hoping that through awareness such as this, that more awareness will be made for ovarian cancer. So instead of 3C, maybe you're diagnosed at stage 1 or 1A.
Well, when a woman is diagnosed in the stage 1 or 1A, she has a 92% chance of a full recovery. And that's one of the difficulties with ovarian cancer, is finding out whether the woman has cancer early on. Because a lot of the symptoms of ovarian cancer mimic different diseases. and a woman may not be sure about it, and neither might her doctor not be sure about it.
And that's so true, Janice. When I started my process, you initially meet with the nurse practitioner, and she goes through the list of symptoms that we now know what they are. But at the time, I was 50 years old, and I owned a tea room. So, the questions were, do you have lower back pain? Well, of course I stand on my feet 10 hours a day. Have you had weight gain? Well, of course I'm going through menopause. So a lot of the symptoms on our symptom cards that we hand out to everyone, as women, we're busy, and those symptoms are never thought as, should I talk to a doctor about a cancer diagnosis, because you can justify it as something else, everyday aches and pains. So unfortunately, the goal of all of us is to try to target some type of early detection testing. I fortunately was one of the lucky ones, but most are not. It's not typical to show up in a Pap test.
That's very true.
So Kathy, obviously this is a different path you've now had to walk, and what type of support, who did you look to, what did you have to help you through the process?
First of all, I think your medical team is your most important starting point. If you are comfortable with your medical team and you feel secure with them, and I don't just mean my oncologist, I love him, but I don't mean just him. It's your nurse practitioner, it's your neat nurses that you see every week, it's your chemo team, your chemo nurses, who see you every day, and when you sit in the chair and they say to you, you're not feeling good today, what's the matter, tell me about it. Because you get to know them, you're there weekly. And your circle of support, obviously family and friends, the Teal Foundation, just knowing that you have folks that you can rely on. You become a family, you become Teal sisters. We call each other Teal sisters. It's an isolated cancer where there's so much education that still needs to be done, that we need to bond together and not only receive support as the patient, but also the patient needs to be supportive and open about their diagnosis so that more people are aware of it.
We'll talk about support in a second. I'm curious, how did you find the medical team that you decided was best for you? How did that process work?
Fortunately, I have a very best friend who is in the nursing community, who had a nephew who did his residency at University of Pennsylvania. So she called him and said, this is what's going on, I need you to find me a doctor, make some phone calls. And so I was, again, blessed that I had someone in the community who suggested my doctor and was able to get me an appointment right away.
And that plays to the support question right there, in that from the beginning, when you're in that state of shock, you've never gone through a cancer diagnosis before. It's probably the first time you've had a cancer diagnosis. What do you do as you're in shock? Well, what you need to do is get a good health team behind you.
Right.
And that's where the first step of our support system came in. So had we thought about it at the time, I would have done exactly what happened to happen, which is those people who you first contacted were looking out for you. They put out, who do we know in that field? So as you just start taking your first step in shock and looking to your support team, it's who in your support team knows somebody who might be able to go
Right.
to. And it starts right from there.
Now, Eric, that is a very interesting perspective, but Kathy is the identified patient here. You are a primary person that is her support system. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so
And your reaction to the diagnosis, et cetera.
He's the researcher.
right. So in short order, after the initial shock and okay, where do we go from here? By trade, I did a lot of research in my career, so you regress to where your strong points are. So I started regressing towards, or moving towards that angle. And what I quickly realized is it's not something I'm going to be able to cross the I's, dot the T's, and get my arms around, because it's too nebulous and it's too changing in that. In other words, what's true today isn't going to be necessarily true from a treatment perspective a month from now. So it's hard to get your hands around that. So you got to let go a little bit to your medical side. You got to figure out, well, how else can I help? Because I'm certainly not going to help out on the medical part. I might be able to weave our way through some things. So what dawned on me pretty quickly, and it's borne out over 4 years, is I try to have a different cadence than my wife has as she's going through it. So it's okay as somebody in the support team to be down and to have a really bad day or 2 days. What you got to try to avoid is your bad day not being the same bad day as the patient is having. And you try to balance that off. And then through that balance, you're not going to both have a bad time, in which case the net result of that is it's going to be worse. So you try to be conscious of that, but not too far over where you try to, look, I'm going to be brave and it's never going to bother me. You can't do that either, because then you're going to pull down the patient. So it's finding that balance, however that cadence is, but having the awareness of you can have a bad day just like the patient is going to have some bad days. Just try not to have them on the same time period. So that's the way I looked at it. And so my wife and I are sailors, so a lot of times we use sailing analogies. And so I try to be a little bit of the rudder below the surface. You might not see it there, but it's trying to keep us on track, and we need to be kept on track. The wind's going to change, a big storm's going to come up, somebody's got their hand on the wheel, and that's going to be maybe the medical team. But you got to be the rudder that's going to course correct sometimes to where you actually need to be going holistically and completely.
Nice.
Very interesting perspective.
So we call it adjusting the sails.
Yes.
We adjust
Okay.
the sails every week, and no matter whether blood counts are low and I can't get treatment, or everything's a go and I can get treatment, you adjust the sails.
So where did the TLT Foundation come in? What support did they provide to you? What role did they play?
They're a great role for me. As the tea room owner, we get to do fundraising together. So I get to offer my services. In return, I've met a wonderful group of folks that I just enjoy their company, and I can support them and they can support me, both in our fundraising abilities, but also in just our camaraderie with each other. I ended up having to have open heart surgery last April, and as soon as the foundation heard about it, cards just started flowing in. So anytime there's a setback, there's always a card or an uplifting comment, or just a support to let them know that they're out there. It's very important to have a circle of support in all phases of the diagnosis, not just friends and family, but organizations where you as the patient can feel empowered that you can help the organization as well as the organization helping you.
And it's a community in that while something might go bump in the night and be bad, heart surgery was totally unexpected, or this treatment, do I do treatment A or treatment B? It's the first time you're making that decision, or it's the first time you're faced with a heart surgery.
Right.
In the organization, it's not, there's somebody who already went through that. So
Right.
in the organization as a whole, you're probably not unique for the first time that's ever been seen. So there's somebody in that community who you can reach out to or be put in contact with that can say, hey, when that storm approached us in that direction like this, here's kind of the way we tried to guide our way through. That's vital when you're facing that type of storm, that type of bad shore, those rocky shoals for the first time. It's good to know somebody else went through there before and how they went through it.
And as the president of the TLT Foundation, I want to thank both of you, because Kathy mentioned that we do have teas at your tea room. And we do have a program called Give Women a Lift, where we have individuals in the community who are in financial need that need assistance, financial assistance to get to treatment. And Kathy's fundraising efforts goes towards that.
Right.
And we are very, very grateful for that. And we promote that on our website as well, www.tlt.org. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Conversation.